So just to give you a little background, Caryn, through her global experiences, multiple languages, and cooking skills, brings the world to our table with quick and easy recipes, tips, and ideas. Caryn grew up surrounded by friends and guests from overseas, sparking a lifelong interest in languages, culture, and travel. She's traveled extensively, living abroad, and during her global entrepreneurial enterprises, she's cultivated some wonderful recipes with her lifelong passion of cooking and baking. And now Caryn has a regular on-air Caryn is a regular on-air contributor, host, and producer of a 30-minute cooking show, and it's called Town Dish, and she has a series which honors first responders right here in New Canaan. So she's one of our local treasures. Thank you so much, Caryn, for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Sam. I'm excited to make another meal. I feel like if we're going to use the hour, we might as well get everything we can into this hour we have together. So welcome, everybody. I am going to be making some polenta bites and a tagliatelle with Bolognese sauce, as well as a tenerina chocolate cake, which is really delicious. I have it sitting over there, staring at it. So to get started, I'm going to show you how to make an authentic, not the instant kind of polenta. I'm actually going to show you the steps, because if we were to make this, I'm going to show you two different ways. If we were going to make it, it would take about 30 minutes of stirring, and I felt like we could use our time more wisely doing other things here. So you're going to heat up some water according to the directions on the recipe I sent you, and just put it in a saucepan like this or a larger pot and salt that water. Then when, I don't have the water in there, of course, but this is the authentic polenta. You can get it at A&S. I think Walter Stewart's, and I believe Acme has well, I'm not sure if they have this, the non-instant polenta, but I'll tell you how to do that one. It's a little easier in a minute. But either way, once you bring your water to a boil, what I want you to do is get your wooden spoon and add the polenta in literally a trickle. So when it boils, turn the water down a little bit, because you're just going to add it really slowly like this as it's boiling, and just keep stirring it like this, and it will avoid any kind of clumps. Also, you can just keep adjusting your heat, because it's pretty hot and the polenta gets hot and it can splatter a little bit. So just turn it down so it's just at a kind of more of like a healthy simmer, as I like to say, and just keep sprinkling it in, just in like a trickle. Just keep going, stirring, stirring. And once you've added all that, a little at a time, not like that, you're just going to stir your pot. And then after about 30 minutes, it will start to kind of pull away from the sides of the pot. You'll see it will thicken up, and then you're pretty much ready. You can add some butter if you like, if you're just making a normal polenta, not the polenta bites, and serve it with sausages or as a side dish. But what we are going to do today, let me just make sure this is heating up for our grill pan. I'll put this over here. I'm going to show you, because I've already made this polenta. Oh, before I show you the polenta, if you're doing the instant polenta, it takes about 3 minutes. So just repeat those same instructions, boil your salted water, and then go ahead and drizzle in your polenta in a trickle. Then what you're going to do is take a large dish like this, and once your polenta, after about 3 minutes, is ready, you're going to pour it right in here to spread it out. I like a nice thin layer, because we're making these polenta bites and you don't want anything too thick, really. So if you're making a veal stew or something else where you're going to be grilling the polenta, it's totally fine to make it a little bit thicker. It's really up to you. But when we do these polenta bites, which should look like this, I've done a couple different shapes to show you. I've done these little bites. You can dip these in the marinara sauce, or I'll show you how to use the little, I have a biscuit cutter. I use one about this size, because it's more like bite size, or you can use smaller. And then I added a little of my pesto, which is on my website. And if you want that recipe, a little pesto and a sun-dried tomato, but there's lots of different ways to serve these. So I'm gonna add some olive oil to the pan because I can feel it's nice and hot. I got everything heated up over here today. So we're not waiting around too much. So just go ahead and generously get your pan, get your olive oil nice and hot. And then you can go ahead, let's see, I'll make some circles today. This is cold, so I've laid it out in my dish and I've stopped it. This is a slightly larger dish, but the other one was probably in the dishwasher. But the nice thing about polenta is you can actually just stop it where you want it to stop, or you can go all the way depending on how much you have. But I think this thickness is just about right. So I just make my little shapes. I'll do a couple just to show you. And while those are cooking, I'm going to make the marinara sauce. And then if you want to do your little more like rectangular, of course, you just cut these guys. There's no wrong way to do this. Or you can do larger squares too. I love making this grilled polenta. Let's see, grilled polenta like this. It's getting hot. Okay, so I'll make a slightly larger one just to show you. We'll throw some on, why not, while we're here. And again, I'll just adjust the heat. Get a little circle in there, a couple circles, and more. And then, oops, might as well do them all. And then also get a plate and line it with some paper towels. So once you're a little jumpy, that olive oil, then once your polenta comes out, you'll just drain it on the paper towels and then go ahead, sprinkle it with a little salt, and then you can serve it and with a sauce or however you wish. So I'll just do those for now. And get a little towel. And let's see, I'm gonna grab my bowl. And actually, I don't know if I put this recipe, I realized on when I submitted the recipe, so I can go ahead and send that to Sam, but it's really simple. If you forget, you can certainly reach out to me or I will send to Sam. Let's see, and what you're gonna do is just take, I love this brand, Muti, but you can use any, just a little can about this size of crushed tomatoes. This is so super simple if you want to make your own marinara. I just thought I'd go ahead and show you. So pour that in a bowl. You can use the crushed, these are crushed, which is what I had today. Or you can use even the cherry tomatoes. And if you have a little blender, which make sure that's plugged in. I have this little handheld blender, which I love. I love this thing because it all just stays in the bowl. Then you're just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil, maybe like a tablespoon, and a little bit of salt, like an Italian teaspoon of salt, and then some fresh basil. So I have my basil here, and if you've watched, you know I like to get, I'm actually going to use this little mug to chop up a couple little leaves here with my kitchen shears. That's my favorite way to chop this up. So easy, and it's all in one place. I'll get like a couple. I'll get about 5 or 6 leaves and see what that looks like. And you're just gonna blend it. It's so simple, and it's a really quick and easy way to make a simple marinara. If you want to use this for pizza, if you're making homemade pizza, you can add a little oregano. I don't use the oregano with this because it just tastes like pizza to me, but you can certainly play around and see what you like. But maybe because I use it for the pizza, I don't like it to fight other flavors if I'm serving the polenta bites with something else. So there we go. So I'll just add a little bit of this freshly chopped basil. I don't even really have to do very much because I have the crushed tomatoes. Whoops, I do have to plug this guy in. Let's see. There we go. And you will just, whoops, the extension cord doesn't go that far. Just, let's see. Just do a quick little blend. Maybe needed my apron. You don't have to do too much. This is actually, if you have, like I said, the cherry tomatoes, it will take you like 2 minutes, not even. You just blend really quickly like this, and you have an amazing little tomato dipping sauce for our polenta. So I'm gonna put this guy, let's see, oops, over here. Get rid of that. We have a lot of other things we need the space for this today. I'll get rid of that. Okay, let's see how our polenta is coming along. So this is great. Smells so good. I love when it's fresh. You can also use fresh tomatoes. We're almost in the summer when it's great, but this is so easy. So if you want to, you can pour that in a little glass bowl so you can see. Let's see, I need to get my little spatula for this polenta. So just carefully as it's cooking, you're going to want to flip it over and it will start to get little lines. Let's see, little score marks, a little bit. And then it's like a nice little kind of crunchy layer, almost crisp, not crunchy, but crisp, hopefully not too crunchy. A little crisp and soft in the middle, and it's really, really good. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this and flip these guys over, and I will get started on our tagliatelle, or our bolognese, sorry. I've also decided to heat the water today. The pot is going, ready for the pasta. So on those lines, while I'm talking about pasta, tagliatelle, for some reason in this country, is really hard to find. You can find it in specialty stores. I did find it at A&S. It's just slightly thicker, but then let's say a fettuccine, it's just a little bit thicker, or wider, sorry, the wider pasta, but it doesn't matter. You can definitely use the fettuccine, which I will go ahead and use. And I'm going to, let's see, actually made this ahead of time, the bolognese, because it does take 2 to 3 hours to cook. So you don't have to do anything once you put it all in the pot. So I'm just gonna make some room over here. And let's see, I'm gonna stick my heated bolognese here. Okay, so I have a good pot about this size, hopefully that you can see this. So a nice large pot. That way, when you don't need that large of a pot, but why I like to use that is because when you're crumbling the meat, it's actually just a lot easier. You can evenly brown your meat. So I'm going to turn that up and add I'll show you what we need. We need a little bit of olive oil in the pot. You're going to need, let's get my basil mess out of here. You're going to need your half a carrot, about a quarter of a stalk of your celery, not very much. It's pretty amazing, all these little flavors that come together, and a half of an onion about this size. So I've already gone ahead and just diced those, and I'm going to brown them. So this is like the holy trinity of the starters for lots of Italian dishes. It's always the onion, celery, carrot, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll use my measuring spoon for this, but just 2 to 3 tablespoons here of your olive oil to get that cooking. And that should take about, I don't know, about 4 or 5 minutes maybe. There we go. To just brown, maybe not even. Okay, so just until it's a nice golden, not too, you just want to get them nice and soft, your veggies. Turn that up again. And while we're doing that, I will flip my, gosh, too many things here. Flip the polenta, keep an eye on it. Let's see, it's looking good. Okay, and the great thing about the polenta is you can keep it for a day or two. If you decide to make it like in that baking dish that I had, you can keep it for a little bit. I wouldn't do too much longer because it does tend to get a little bit of watery, but here we go, it's starting to brown up nicely. But you can keep it in there, just tightly wrapped, and then go ahead and make your little bites. And these are great. I mean, you can even do some tomato or mushrooms on top, whatever you really like. They're kind of just something a little different, and these are great. Okay, so those are looking good. I don't know if you can see this, they're hot. But you can see it's starting to get a little brown, nice and crispy, so good. All right, I'm gonna let those go do their thing. And I think this is heated up nicely. I'm gonna add my veggies right in here. It's like a mirepoix in French, same kind of idea. It's amazing. My Italian cousin that I lived with for a little while in Milan, she taught me this recipe and I just loved it and begged her for this. So it's really like a delicate recipe, even though you think it's kind of heavy because we're using meat, but it's pretty, let's use another spoon. It's a pretty delicate in terms of the flavors. And she always told me, you never want to use too much of anything, whether it's basil, any of the herbs, just enough. And it's incredible that we have just a few little veggies and it brings out this amazing flavor. Let's see. So I'm just gonna cook those for a little bit and might add, if it looks a little bit dry, you can always add just a little bit of olive oil. You just don't want to add too much because you have the meat, which will give you, of course, some fat. So just so that they're not sticking. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna let that be for a few minutes. And let's see how these guys are coming along. They are looking good. I'll give them a little bit longer here, and then I'll show you the meat. I'm definitely multitasking. Sorry, I hope everyone is keeping up. It's not that hard. It's actually, the Bolognese is really easy. It does take about 2 to 3 hours after you cook it to just let it, all you have to do is stir it maybe every 20 minutes or 30 minutes at a very, very low heat, and just to allow all the flavors to come together. So, all right, let these guys, that's looking good. Okay. That, I'll just turn that heat down a little bit. Now, what I like to use, my cousin had actually called for about 1 or 2 pounds. I tend to use about 2 pounds because you can always reserve some if you're going to go to the effort to do this. I always think it's good to just go ahead and make a little bit more. So 2 pounds, and what she called for, 2 pounds of double ground veal, so choice ground. So you can ask the butcher to do that. What I actually really like is to use, which I found at Walter Stewart's, is a veal, pork, and beef blend, which is really nice because it's just lighter than using all beef. And if you're not really into having all veal either, then that's a good compromise, but it just makes it a little bit lighter. So, okay, that's actually looking good. So I have my meat here. And then what I'm going to add at this point are 2 cloves, 2 just whole cloves like this. Once I add my meat in there, I'm going to add the cloves, and then and I can salt this a little bit at that point, about a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just going to keep breaking down the meat, just crumbling it as much as I can, and just allow it to gently brown. I'm not talking about like really brown because you don't want it dried out, but just until it's no longer pink, let's say. Okay, I think this is actually, that looks great. This is nice, and those are soft. It's funny because sometimes they ask you to add the onion and the carrots and celery in stages, but this one you just put it right in the pot. So I'm going to go ahead and add that meat. And Walter Stewart's is great. If you need more or less, they'll just get that for you. Whoops, turn that one off. Okay, they will kind of tailor it to whatever kind of quantity you need, which I love. And they can also grind it again if you want to try twice ground. I didn't do it this time, but I have done that, and that's great too. It just makes it a little finer. You can make a lasagna with this too. I have done that in a different show I did. It's really easy. You're just cooking lasagna, the lasagna sheets, and then a bechamel sauce. I actually think I did that for we haven't released the the town dish police episode that we did, but I made the lasagna, a couple lasagnas when I went over there and talked to them. So, okay, so I'm gonna get this, keep this going. Let that kind of brown, add my cloves, just throw those in there, put a little bit of salt. You can adjust later for salt. I always say just wait and see. And because of course, when you're adding the tomatoes, that will kind of soak up that salt, but you can adjust that later. So, all right, these guys, let's see how these are doing while that meat is browning. See how my polenta bites. These are looking pretty good. Okay, this guy is ready. So they're looking nice, and you can see this pretty hot, but it's like a nice, whoops, golden brown. It's definitely hot. So wait before you serve them, unless you're serving it as a side dish, which is also really great. And whoops, they are a little bit fragile, so there we go. We'll just get rid of these so we have some more space over here. You can see what I'm doing. Okay, those look really good. It's just sort of nice to have something different. I feel like if you're swapping out from maybe potatoes or something, if you're doing a meat dish or chicken, anything, polenta goes really well. Just kind of like cornmeal, same kind of thing. So coarsely ground. So there are our bites. And of course, if you want, you can sprinkle a little salt if you like, just a little bit over the top. And then I'll put a little of that tomato, get this guy to stir first, and then I'll show you my that marinara sauce, which is really good. So I'll probably keep that later and make a nice sauce for some pasta for someone. Okay. All right, so get this going. Turn that up a little bit, browning the meat. So it's a lot easier because it's in this huge pan, as you can see. It just kind of spreads out really evenly. So has a little ways to go, but we will get there. Okay, another one here. Okay, now I'm gonna get a little dish so I can show you that pretty sauce. Uh-oh. White dish. Never have enough glass dishes. Another investment, let's see. But it just looks really pretty on a plate with this fresh marinara. And the basil, as we get further into like the summer months, it smells so good. This is actually really good. I can smell this basil. So you can see that a little better maybe. And then just put it on a little plate with your polenta bites. So those are really tasty. Okay, so we'll see how this is going. My water, I have my large pot way over here. It is boiling of water. So take this away. Turn that up so we're ready to cook. Let's see. Might get that pasta going while we're just waiting a little bit for this. But I already have, like I said, I have this Bolognese sauce already made to show you. You can see the finished product, but this is getting there. Just wanted to show you the steps. So this is really like the toughest part, and it's not even that hard. It's just getting all the meat to brown. And I do have the finished product right here. So I just reheated it a little bit over here. And at this point, I guess I'm gonna go ahead, turn up that heat, and I'm gonna push this over here, actually, too many pots. And just go ahead and make the pasta once that's boiling again. Okay. So, and the bechamel sauce, I actually, if you wanna make the lasagna, I have that as well. I believe, yeah, that's on my website too. So you can go ahead. It's actually really simple. It's just some milk, butter, flour. It's just, you just have to stir for a little bit and you think it's never gonna thicken up, and then suddenly it does. So it's kind of like that ice cream we made last time, or gelato. Okay, so this is looking good. I'm going to show you, get rid of a little bit of the pinkness from this, from the meat, because this is going to be cooking for so long. It's definitely going to be cooked. That's why I don't like to overdo it at this point. So it's going to be really tender and, like I said, kind of delicate. Nice, a really nice sauce. So, and the other thing is this freezes really well. So like I said, if you're making a little extra, if you have some left over, sometimes I even make double the portion and just freeze it. So it's nice to be able to pull that out on a busy weeknight. Here we go. Okay, so this looks great. This is nicely brown. I'm going to adjust the heat a tiny bit. So just browned like this. And even if you can still see a tiny bit of pink, that's okay, because we're going to add our 1/4 cup of wine. I put a dry white wine, just a Pinot Grigio. You don't have to go crazy with the cost on this, just like a decent one, because you're adding it into the food. But go ahead and add about a 1/4 cup. I'm going to reserve a little, like pour it a little extra, because if you see it getting dry, your sauce at any point during the 2 to 3 hours, you can just add a little bit, but just make sure to go easy, just add a little bit. It will evaporate as you're cooking, but you just want just enough so it's not too soupy, just to kind of add a little bit of the flavor and to combat the dryness if you do have that issue. But if you're, once you're cooking it on that very low heat, you should be okay, but you can judge. Okay, so we're just going to let that cook for a few minutes, and then let that kind of soak up till it's a little bit evaporated. And okay, I'm going to put this top back on because now he doesn't want to boil my pot. Okay, so then what you're going to do is add, once that's kind of evaporated, you're going to add some tomato paste. So I love muti. It does come in this little squeeze tube, which I also love. I'll probably use about half of this if you're going to use, because this is concentrated too. But if you want, you just use the little jar that you can find. I'll show you the shape. You can just use one little jar of that. I'll show you the size. I don't think I have the other brand, but it's about like, this is not it, but this is about the size. So just a little bit of the tomato paste, you're going to add it right in there in your pot. And let's see, adjust that heat a little bit. Okay, the water's boiling. And so at this point, I'm going to add that tomato paste. This brand I just love because it's so fresh. It tastes so fresh. And another kind of discovery from my cousin, who's always keeping me updated on the best and latest things she loves. Whoops, it's not opening. Okay. There we go. Come on. That is definitely sealed. Okay, so I'll use about a half. And this is great. It's kind of like a toothpaste tube, so you can get all of it out of your tube. So it's a little too much there. Adjust the heat. And then once this step is finished, you're just gonna let this be. And a little more. There we go. Just make sure it's the tomato paste. I'll show you what it looks like in a second. Make sure that it is all incorporated. And see, time, oh good. Okay. Make sure it's all incorporated, and then you're just gonna let it sit at a very, very low heat. So it's gonna smell so good in your kitchen when you do this. I love to do this sometimes on like a Sunday afternoon, or even like an afternoon if I have the time. You can turn it off if you have to go do something and come back, but just make sure that, because it's still sitting there, but just make sure it's not for too long. But if you have to dash out to get something, you can turn it back on, because all the flavors are really just coming together so nicely. And in fact, if you make this, you can actually serve it the next day. And it's generally the case if you're making a soup or a sauce like this, it just tastes so good once those flavors have had a chance to combine. So, okay, so this looks awesome. I'm going to, whoops, show you what this looks like and then turn it down to, whoops, the lowest, just turned it off. Okay, the lowest heat. So it's looking like this. Hopefully you can see that. And just let it sit there. And you can cover that if you want, but just leave a little opening. And then every 20 minutes or so, like I said, just come over and give it a little stir. And at the end, I would just correct if you need any salt, that would be the time to check it. Let's make sure, okay, this guy, all right, it's boiling. And then I would serve this with some Parmesan. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna put the pasta in and then we will do our dessert while that is going. Okay, so I think that's 11 minutes. I'm gonna set my timer and get my pasta. Oops. Okay. Okay, get my pasta fork out and then give this a good stir. Just make sure when you're using this fettuccine or tagliatelle or any of the pastas that are a little bit wider, just make sure to stir it so it doesn't stick together. So, and of course I salted my water. Never add any olive oil to your pot because then your sauce will not stick. So, a little stir while I'm here. Okay, so I'll wait a few minutes, come back and stir because I want to show you this fabulous cake that is super easy to make. And I'm going to move this over actually. Okay. So this tenerina is a great cake, super simple. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Here we go. So it's just a really simple cake, but it's almost like a brownie with a little meringue topping and kind of fudgy in the middle. It's so good. And just a little powdered sugar on top if you wish. I also like to serve it with berries, and I don't know, you can do a little creme anglaise if you want. I actually made a different kind of chocolate cake around Valentine's Day and did that, but that one would also be really, really good. It just kind of cuts it a little bit, the chocolate. So, okay, so I have my bowl. I'm gonna get rid of some of these things so we can see. Sure, I didn't forget anything. Okay, there we go. So all my ingredients. Drop. Okay. So I'm going to show you what we need here. Okay, this is really super simple. You're just going to need 3 eggs separated. So meaning that you want to separate your yolks and your egg whites. And then you have 2 tablespoons of your milk, about 7 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. It's about, if you're looking, you can get something like this. It's almost 2 bars. You'll have a tiny bit left over, a stick of butter, and half a cup of your sifted flour, just makes it nice and light, and a half a cup of sugar. I'm gonna put this over here, and we will get this started. I need a couple more things. Let's see, what do I have? Okay, so instead of a double broiler, because just mine is a little bit big, and if you don't have one, this is a great way to show you. You can fill a saucepan like this with some water and then just use a smaller one on top to melt your butter and chocolate. So I'm going to turn that on. Hopefully it's nice and still a little warm. And I'm going to add my chocolate, just broke it into pieces so it's a little easier to melt, and my butter. I'm going to grab a knife, get that off. So you never want to heat chocolate directly over the heat source because it just can get dried out. It can tend to stick. And in that case, you definitely don't want to add water because it would just seize. The chocolate will like just seize up and kind of clump together, and it's really awful. So this is a much better way to do this. And you don't need, if you don't have the double broiler, you don't need to run out and get one if you have just 2 small pots like this. And we're gonna let that just go ahead, and hopefully that melts pretty quickly. Okay, turn that up and set that over here. I'm gonna give my pasta a little stir so it doesn't stick together. I have my strainer all ready, and I will check the time on that. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, I'll give this guy a stir. Okay, so about 4 minutes. Okay, we're in good shape. So I'm gonna let that just melt. Hopefully that melts pretty quickly. And then in a small bowl, like about this size, you're going to take your 3 egg yolks. Those are so nice and orange. It's amazing. I was up upstate and found a farm that had amazing eggs. So they're nice, and I love that, this orange. So I'm gonna take this, and I have half a cup of sugar. I have taken a 1/4 cup of it. I need only a 1/4 cup with the egg yolks and a 1/4 cup with the egg whites, which I'll show you. I actually did that because I already whipped them, because it takes about 4 or 5 minutes, and I just thought it was gonna get a little bit too loud for 4 or 5 minutes. So I'll show you that in a second. So I am gonna beat this. Other beaters. And what you wanna do is just beat it until, make sure my pasta is still going. Okay. All right. And you're just gonna beat it until it kind of doubles in size. So you will see, yeah, it's so pretty. Just for a couple minutes, maybe a minute or 2, not too long. Time.
Caryn, while you're whipping that, can you answer 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
the first question, and I think I really muddied the waters here. When you added cloves to the Bolognese, that's cloves, a whole clove, the spice?
Yes, just a whole clove. Yeah, just
Okay.
add 2. You only need 2. And in the end, is
Do
actually
you take
doubled. You can take them out, or you can leave them in. I always joke around with my kids that if they find it, it's a lucky thing. I don't think that's even an Italian thing at all, but it's just something I tell them. So when they were younger and they were a little bit fussy about what they were eating, I told them, but if you do happen to find them, you can just pluck them out, but it won't harm anything. It actually, they get so soft, but yeah, if you can find them, it's probably better.
Thank you. And the next question is about the chocolate. What kind of chocolate and how much? I think that was just missed.
So 7 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. So something, if you use like Ghirardelli, or I tend to use a little bit nicer chocolate, just because there's only so many ingredients and it is the chocolate cake. So it's, you know, when you don't have that many ingredients, it's kind of, I always try to get a little bit of a nicer chocolate, but then again, you're mixing it. So, I mean, Ghirardelli is great if you want to use this, or I'd steer away from chocolate chips, just because chocolate chips aren't meant to break down. So it takes a little bit longer, but they will certainly melt. Let me get a spoon for this. So yes, hopefully that answered.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so this is starting to get there. Okay. So, okay, get everything going here. And then, okay, whoops, I'm gonna get a little paper towel and a spoon. Okay, and now, so this is sort of doubled. It's not, let me just give it a little around the edges of my bowl. It just kind of whips up You can see it's less orange because of the sugar, of course, but something like this, just a couple minutes, 1 or 2. It's not, whoopsie, made a mess of my bowl. So anyway, so you're going to do this, and then you're going to add the chocolate once it melts. So hopefully this chocolate melts. It does go, when it goes pretty quickly. So, and you're going to let this, the nice thing about using kind of a double broiler or a situation like this is that it's not going to be too hot. But if you find that the chocolate is hot, you might want to let it sit before you add it to your bowl. But every time I've done this, you can just dip, you know, using your little finger to test it if you want and see if it's too hot, because you don't want to curdle your eggs or like make them scrambled. They'll cook during the process in the oven. But okay, while this is, it's almost there, I promise. While that's going, I will show you the rest. So I have my sifted flour. Just make sure you have the sifted flour, which we'll add after we add the chocolate. And then the pan I use is a springform pan. So I can show you this. So the springform is great. You can use a normal cake pan if you want. I would just highly suggest to also line it with, I've lined this with parchment paper. It's just so much easier to get your cake out and there's less of a mess. It's fantastic. And springform, you haven't used one, probably many of you have, but it just, the bottom just comes right out like this. So just make sure it's lined up when you put it back in, it's lined up in the little grid at the bottom. And so it's flush. There we go. And then you're just going to pour your batter in there and cook it. But if you use a normal cake pan, I would just recommend also buttering the edges of the side of the pan so it comes out really easily. I actually, let me check my pasta. I actually make that other cake I was mentioning, and it's in a normal cake pan and it's totally fine. So you can do either one. If you don't have a springform pan, don't panic. You don't have to go buy one. But it does make it a lot easier. I know a lot of Italian recipes that I make call for one. So it's definitely a good investment if you like to bake and want to make this, but it's not completely necessary. So, okay. So this guy, just don't get a steam burn if you use this method because the steam from underneath likes to pop up. Okay, it's getting there. It is getting melted. Okay, and my pasta is almost ready. Okay, we'll try a little bit while we're waiting. So that looks almost done. So you just want it al dente, of course, a little slight, whoopsie, really hot. A little bite to it, but let's see. Needs another minute or two. Okay, not too mushy. You never want it. You just want a little al dente means to the teeth, to the teeth. So it's, you just want to have it a little bit firm, but not too much. So that needs another, let me check my timer, a couple minutes. Okay. And now the chocolate has melted. So that is perfect. So let me just check. Nope, it's just the steam is hot, but this is actually not super hot, which is funny. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this right into my egg mixture. Just add all that in there. And then blend it at a low speed. I have my spatula. Let's see. There we go. It's a lot easier. So put it in here. And then I will show you what I've done with the other eggs, which creates the meringue. I'll show you that in a second once we get this all going. Where can I put you? Okay. Get this out of the way so we can see everything. Oops, before I do that, I'm just going to check on my pasta again. I don't want to overdo it. Okay. Trying to decide where I'm going today. Oh, that's ready. Fire department. Someone's going to get Someone's gonna get this batch. Okay, all right. Or EMS maybe, let's see. Okay, so I'm just draining my tagliatelle, and then I'm gonna put this right back, the pasta right back in to my pot. Just make sure you drain out that water. And then I'm gonna add the tagliatelle, the Bolognese sauce. So you can just put it right back in here. And let's see, I'll put it over here and then add Bolognese. I'm gonna reheat it a tiny bit because normally I would have that still going. Oops, but burning my spoon. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna add that in. So you can see, and then of course serve it with a nice freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and it is fantastic, really fantastic meal. And it honestly doesn't take that long. So I'll probably, maybe I'll use all of it. It's about a pound of spaghetti, just one box, and probably use most of this sauce, depending. You can also stir it in, and then, oops, there you are. You can stir it in, and then if you want, when you go to serve it, you can add a little bit of the sauce on top, depending on what you want to do. So this is looking amazing. Okay. And this is really good to go, making me so hungry. Okay, so there we go. There is our Bolognese, tagliatelle alla Bolognese. So that is ready. Keep that, maybe I'll keep that heated. Okay, now we'll just finish off our cake now that everything else is ready. So just on a low speed, so I've added my chocolate back here at the dessert, and on a low speed, I'm just gonna blend the chocolate and the eggs. Just make sure to incorporate it all. It's such an awesome, dark, rich, chocolatey color. You can see it's so good. It's so like fudgy and delicious. Why it's great with like raspberries or strawberries this time of year. So that's nicely incorporated. And then I'm just simply gonna add my flour, just add a little at a time. And my timer. Okay, and I didn't know it ever did that, had that function. Add my 2 tablespoons of whole milk, and oops, come back. It's on a low speed. Add that all in there. Okay, so just until it's blended, just like this. So there we go. Now I'm going to show you what I've done with those egg whites, and I'm glad I did them ahead of time. So I think they're still stiff. The peaks are stiff. Let me check. So what I've done is with the other 1/4 cup of the sugar and the 3 egg whites, I have just beaten that in this bowl with, make sure your beaters are clean. So the egg whites, all this rises up, and let's see, it's just, it should form stiff peaks. I'm just going to give it a little, because I did this before we started. Let me just pop these out quickly and pop these guys back in, just to kind of, I usually wouldn't do that, but it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. So it only takes about 3-4 minutes, maybe on the high speed, maybe 5. Just like a meringue. Okay, so that's good enough. So it's just like a meringue. It's forming a stiff peak. I'm gonna get rid of that on my blender. My beater, I mean. And then I'm just going to gently, actually don't need these anymore, I forgot. I'm going to gently fold this meringue into my chocolate mixture. So these guys can all go away. And another spatula. Like it looks like Harry Potter spatula or something. Okay. So I'm just going to gently fold it in here. So you don't want the egg whites to break down completely, which is why I'm not using the beater. Obviously, you're incorporating it, so it's going to blend, but you just don't want to like overbeat it. So just till it's incorporated, because that's what gives that delicious cake the wonderful meringue kind of crispy, low crunch on the top and the fudginess in the middle. So here we go. It's just an extra step to make that happen. So just fold it like this until it's all incorporated. And then you're just going to put it in your pan and bake it at 350. My oven is preheated to 350 for about 20 to 25 minutes. My oven definitely is, it's always through at 20 minutes. So just make sure, I always feel like with a new recipe, check your oven. The worst thing is to overcook something. So, but you can just take your little tester, and once in the middle or in a couple spots, you can test. And if it comes out clean, it's good to go. So, and it'll be a little crunchy on top. You'll see it. It'll crisp up a little bit. So there we go. So that's perfect. It's all blended in, as you can see. And I'm just going to pour this right into my pan with the parchment paper, my springform pan. And then I'm just going to make sure it's kind of even on top. So just spread it out as evenly as you can, so it bakes at in the same spot all over the cake. The cake bakes evenly. And let's see. So just using my spatula, I'm just gonna smooth it out, and you are good to go. I love this cake. It's just a little bit, it's not a brownie, and it's really simple. So I love this. It's just something different. If you want to try this, make your Italian meal. This came from the Emilia Romagna section of Ferrara, the city of Ferrara. This was originated there. So there we go. So it's in my pan. I'm going to cook it in the oven for 20 minutes, and it's going to come out looking like I showed you. I'll show you again to entice you to make it. And there it is. So it's a little, as you can see, it's a little bit crunchy on top, and it's really delicious. So I hope you get to make all these recipes. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
That looks gorgeous. In fact, everything looked amazing. I think everyone's feeling that it's lunchtime.
Yeah,
because it's just
definitely.
Thank you so much, Caryn. I'm so excited to try these, and I'm going to overshare really quickly and let you know that when I was pregnant with my first, every single day I needed a Bolognese sauce, and everyone just understood that that's just what I needed. So it was just wonderful to watch you make that.
I love it.
We do have two questions. The first is, so for the cake, what size springform pan did you use? And could you use this in mini springform pans? I think one of our participants today has a 3-inch, and she's wondering if she can make individual servings.
I think you can definitely try that. I would just make sure that, because the cooking time is like 20 to 25, just check it earlier. Maybe, I don't know, I would check it at like, I don't know, 10, just start checking it, or peek in the oven and see how if it's starting to look a little crispy, then the little meringue topping, you know, I haven't made it in that size. This is probably about a 10-inch. There's a 9-inch, but the 10-inch is what it calls for. So, but yeah, I think you could definitely make it. Maybe it's not 10 minutes, maybe it's like 15, but just make sure to check it. And yeah, I would be curious to hear how long that takes. And I bet that would be fabulous to have like an individual dessert. Sounds good.
Thank you. And we have another question. What did you put on that today? It looks like powdered sugar, and you mentioned you could also put a sauce on top.
Oh yes, I did. So I just added a little powdered sugar. So just a little powdered sugar. If you wish, I think it always looks prettier. And generally when I go to serve it, I think my berries were gone, someone ate, but you can do a little, you can even make a little design, like a couple, raspberries and maybe a mint leaf if you're presenting it for dessert, which is great, and then serve it. I do a creme anglaise, which is on my website. I did it with a different chocolate cake, but it would certainly go really well with this cake as well. So yeah, you might want to try that. And that's very easy. I know you're doing something soon with the library using a creme anglaise as well. So yeah, it's an easy recipe to whip up and would be great with this. And the berries too, of course.
Yes, and I should let everybody know we are doing a ice cream class next week, although it is at capacity, so it's only at waitlist at the moment because it is in person, which means that we have a lot less space. Also wanted to let you know that Caryn and I are talking about, and I know a lot of you know that we're building the new Canaan library. You can check it out at newcanaannewlibrary.org. And so we are in conversations about in-person cooking classes, which I know you're all excited about. I know a lot of you guys want to see what Caryn's cooking, want to actually be able to see the technique and to smell it and to taste it. So we are working towards that. So we'll probably hiatus for next month as we figure out some interim in-person programs, and we will try to make them hybrid so those of you at home can still access. So just double check. You can always email me at sconnell@newcanaanlibrary.org and frequently check our events calendar. We're getting a lot of thank yous and a lot of yums.
Thank you.
Everybody is, I love this crowd. It's my favorite crowd. We do have we have time for one last question.
Sure.
Marty wants to know your position on saving pasta water for making sauces.
Okay, yes, I would definitely, especially if you're using cheeses, I would definitely save a little bit. Always have like I don't have it, like a glass measuring cup by your pot. And like when I was making a cacio e pepe, it definitely, did I do that? I did that last time. You can, for the last class, you can add it to your pot as when you add your cheeses, etc. Just add that water gradually, just like the wine when you're doing just do everything a little gradually. But the nice thing is it thickens up. So if you're cooking in your pot and you're adding the cheeses, just keep going, just at a low heat, keep it stirring, and you'll see that the cheeses start to thicken up. So I definitely recommend that. With the Bolognese, I tend not to add the water just because it makes it a little bit, it waters it down. So something like that, I don't do it. But yes, in certain cases, I absolutely would save that pasta water. The starch from the pasta water really helps out. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Caryn. This is like
Sure.
my favorite. You are just,
Thank
you're
you.
just serving up so much fun things for us to try.
Yay.
So I want to thank everybody for coming today, and we'll see you all soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.